Hi, welcome to Reading Bites, and I'm the Book Vampire, and today we're reviewing Joe Hill's Nosferatu. Now, the name of the book is obviously the license plate of this 1938 Rolls-Royce race, but if you're American you may have noticed that it's for R2 here. In America it's for A2. Okay. I'm just going to introduce Joe Hill. If you don't know Joe Hill at all, Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King, who goes by a different name. Well, the original idea was so he didn't get compared to his father, but it's quite, common knowledge now. This is his third full-length book. Before that we have Heart-Shaped Box, which is an amazing book, and the first book I ever read by him, Horns, which is currently being made into a film with Daniel Radcliffe in the lead. His first proper book was actually a compilation of stories, which is 20th Century Ghosts, and he's also the writer of Lock and Key, the comic book series. Okay. Now, like the previous book, this book is actually illustrated. So if you look in, here's my copy. By the way, I've met Joe Hill, he's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and hugs absolutely everyone. Even vampires. So we've got here a very lovingly drawn blood bag. Okay. A bangle. Excuse me while I just... And here we've got an advertisement for Christmasland. Now, Christmasland plays incredibly heavily in this book and revolves around Charles Manx, the book's villain. Now, I'm not going to give away too much of the plot because I actually want you to read this book. It's a very, very lovingly written book, amazingly done. But this is actually, in a way, a Christmas book. A book set around Christmasland and Charles Manx, the villain of the book, who doesn't seem to age. He travels around this in this, like I said, Rolls-Royce race, stealing children and taking them off to Christmasland, something he believes, all children want, which is actually quite sinister. We have our protagonist, Victoria, the brat McQueen, who has a very similar talent to, our villain, Mr. Manx, except hers is to find things with a rally bike she gets as a birthday present. Things like bracelets and cats and all sorts of things. Now, the book actually follows Victoria McQueen from childhood and her encounter with Max all the way to adulthood. I could go into more of this, and in a way I really, really want to. I'd absolutely love to tell you the entire tale of this, but I do want you to read it. It's a very creepy, really written book, and if you haven't read much of Joe Hill's book, all his stories are quite creepy. And Charles Manx is a very sinister character. What I actually really loved about this, apart from the way it's written, apart from the fact that Joe Hill has made Christmas very, very creepy, is the fact that it does something which, to be truthful, Stephen King does. It goes back and it dips into his other books. I fell in love with Joe Hill via Heart-Shaped Box, the story of an aging rocker who buys a ghost online, and it mentions something from that book, and immediately, as soon as I, read that, something clicked and I jumped up and screamed. Bit of an odd reaction for someone who's reading a book, but I absolutely adore his books. It also mentions, something that's appeared in Stephen King's book, so if you're a King fan, you may want to, read it just to find out, but that's the thing with it. It's very intricately woven. It's mentioning something that's happened somewhere else, and like I said, it's completely made Christmas menacing and really, really horrible in a way. But as a book, I would have to give this 5 out of 5 bats. I couldn't put it down when I actually got the book, and as soon as I finished reading it, I really wanted Joe Hill to write another book, which, obviously he will do as a writer, but I wanted it now, which is a bit sulky of me. Now, if you have read Joe Hill's books or want to know more about Joe Hill, you can actually follow him on Twitter. He's on Twitter and he does reply to people all the time at Joe_Hill. And if you've ever had the pleasure of meeting him, he's quite a nice chap. Before I introduce the actual next book I'll be reviewing next time, I did want to show you one of my favourite illustrations from the book. So if you didn't believe that it could actually make Christmas creepy, Joe Hill did. Okay. Right, next week's book is called Let the Old Dreams Die by Jean Ajvid Lindqvist. Now, please excuse me if I pronounced the name wrong. The author is a Swedish author, This is a collection of old stories, and it follows Let the Right One In. You may have heard about Let the Right One In. It was a one of the first books that was translated by this author. It's also recently been turned into 2 films, the Swedish Let the Right One In, which is amazing, and the American Let Me In, not as good, but obviously relating to the book. So we'll be reviewing this one next time, and I'll give you a list of all these other books. Okay, bye boys and ghouls.